So why do I think Utah would be the promised land and not California? I actually get a lot of questions and comments on this, so I thought I would go ahead and reply to this follower's comment because they kind of summarized the whole topic into one long post. So, when you just take Deuteronomy 8:7-9 and like that description, a land of brooks of water, fountain springs, this lush land flowing with milk and honey and oil, olive oil. Our modern day minds would think California, absolutely. However, you've got to keep in mind, and I talk about this extensively in other videos if you want to go back and watch them, the climate was very different back then. First of all, there was a huge inland body of water in the Great Basin that came up near to the Utah-Nevada state line. It was an inland sea, and that in itself would make the climate on the western side of Utah much more temperate. But not only that, but there's great evidence suggesting that the entire continent, if not the entire world, was all subtropical, and perhaps not even that long ago. There are fossilized palm trees all around the Salt Lake City area. There are fossilized palm trees in Canada and Alaska. So there was a massive change at some point. A lot of people online talk about this. They talk about the mud flood and different things. We're all trying to figure out what happened. But it was prophesied in the Bible that Egypt would be destroyed, that, Ammon and Moab and that whole region, that whole part of Utah would be destroyed, which we see it was. Like the land was just torched. And I don't know if that was one singular event or multiple events. Also, that great inland sea was drained. It drained north. I'm not even making that up. That's just kind of common understanding. Also, the Southwest, before whatever happened, there were forests. There were huge stands of petrified forests in, for example, Arizona. The mining companies came in and harvest all of these petrified trees because they had such valuable minerals in them. The entire state of Arizona, and I think probably parts of New Mexico and Nevada, were covered in thousands of miles of highly advanced canals. There are canals crisscrossing the state, not just dug ditches, like paved canals, covered, paved, detailed brickwork lining these canals. So it was a very lush land, full of massive cities, and I think a population much bigger than today. And so yes, the island of California was separated from the mainland by the Red Sea or the Vermilion Sea, which was considered, part of the same water system as the Colorado River, which ran into it. However, the Israelites didn't cross the Red Sea, they crossed Yam Suf, which means sea or lake of reeds, R-E-E-D. And through careful mapping of scriptures, we've identified that location to be up along the Colorado River, kind of where Overton Arm is today. Okay, moving on. This is a long comment. Yes, California does produce salt. However, it also produces copper. It has the second largest copper mine in the entire world. And that copper mine is located right within the land of Canaan. And as far as the names, the Mormons resettled the area in the 1800s and renamed a lot of places. I'm highly aware of that. I don't know why everyone points that out, like they wouldn't know that, but they did. They came in, they renamed places. From the research I've done, I believe they renamed places their proper names because they knew what was up. That is why they went there. They were looking for this land specifically. and they knew what they were looking for. But that aside, the modern day names of places is not how we are identifying these locations, because there are dozens and hundreds of places in the U.S. named after biblical locations. You cannot just go off of that, obviously. Sometimes it's added confirmation that we have identified the right location because it still carries the original name. But that's kind of like an extra perk. Sometimes it's just nice to have that confirmation, but it is not how we are identifying these locations. There are hundreds of locations we have identified that do not carry the original name. And then I think I clipped it off, but you had mentioned the Great Salt Lake, that there's just a dying salt lake there. It's not fertile or abundant, but I mean, exactly, that is what we are looking for, is an inland salt sea. That fits the description in the Bible, and I have talked about this in other videos as well. The Bible describes an inland salt sea connected by a river to a freshwater body of water, which is what we find in Utah. We have the Great Salt Lake, the Salt Sea, the Jordan River, and Utah Lake, which is Sea of Galilee. We do not have that in California. In fact, we don't have that anywhere else in the world except the Middle East. So, one of the other things about this lush promised land is it was near to an inland salt or dead sea. And then I'm a little confused because I think your AI maybe changed the story on you, because now it's saying down here the Colorado River is that crossing point, which is what we actually have. The Yam Suf, where they crossed, was essentially the Colorado River. There's a little more to it than that, but it kind of brief summary, they crossed the Colorado River. I believe they actually crossed upstream of the Colorado River at the junction of the Virgin River and the Muddy River. In the confluence of the Colorado River, there was a broad floodplain there that was impassable during the spring. And it's full of bulrushes. There's even state signs that say bulrushes. And I believe that's actually where they crossed, but I have other videos about that. So anyway, I hope that makes a little bit of sense. I just wanted to make that video because I get those same questions quite a bit in different forms. Because when you first look at it and you learn that, oh yeah, like all of this, California used to be separated as it was an island and it was the Red Sea. There you automatically think, well, they crossed the Red Sea and California is all lush and beautiful. That must be the promised land. It does make sense superficially, but you have to look a little bit deeper than that. And nothing else works. Nothing else matches the surrounding nations that are described, and the information we have about the travel distance and stuff from these surrounding nations and different things don't work at all, and they work perfectly up here in Utah. So anyway, hope that made sense. Let me know if you have any more questions. That's all I got on that today.